The land explored by our ancestors extends from the Altai to the White Sea. The scientific expedition Trails of Nomads is set to unveil the path of our forefathers. A 3-year-long expedition heads for the west. A group of scientists led by a pilgrim of the 21st century, Saparis Kaka, visited more than 20 countries in 70 days. Watch an amazing story of a great journey in the program Trails of Nomads. In today's Trails of Nomads episode, what documents prove the descent of Lithuanian Tatars and the Karaites from the Kipchaks? What Golden Horde Khan Toktamys and Great Prince of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania Vitovt had in common? How many Kipchak warriors participated in the famous Battle of Grunwald? You have nothing to regret at all in the past. You need to experience life in order to learn the lessons for the future, the Kazakh wisdom says. Moreover, we better accept our history to face the future. However, it was difficult to do so in the Soviet times. Moreover, real events were turned into lies, and lies were presented as truth. Now, Kazakhstan is an independent country, and it is important to know the difference between right and wrong, and be able to find the truth. This is the task pursued by members of the scientific expedition following the footsteps of ancestors. The next stop after Belarus is Lithuania.
Ал енді мұнда екі халық тұрады. Біреуі Литвада тұратын татарлар деп есептеймін.
Lithuanian Tatars and Karaites relatives of the Kipchaks live here. Languages are similar, but religions are different. Although the Tatars have not preserved their language, they have preserved their religion. The Karaites, on the contrary, lost their religion, but preserved the language.
Бұлардың енді айту бойынша Кипчактардың бір тобы, бұлар өзінің тілінен айырылғанмен, діннен айырылған жоқ. Қарайымдар керісінше діні бөлегірек, бірақ тілдерінен айырылған жоқ.
Peoples related to the Kipchaks came to the Lithuanian land in the 13th century. They moved from the neighboring Crimea. The Mongol invasion was one of the reasons. Lithuanians asked our warlike ancestors to help them defeat the enemy. Most of the present territories of Lithuania, Latvia, Poland, Estonia, Moldova, Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia were then part of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. This Eastern European state was formed in the 13th century and existed until 1795. One of the first capitals was Vilnius, which is now the administrative center of Lithuania. As it turned out, Vilnius' oldest archives have preserved many historical materials about our ancestors.
The
population of Duchy Kipchak first appeared on Lithuanian land in the 13th century, that is, after the Mongol invasion. However, most of the Lithuanian Kipchaks were warriors who moved together with the Golden Horde Khan, Toktamys. They came from the Kipchak clans Shirin, Barin, Argan. In the valley of the Terek River, Toktamys was defeated by the army of Emir Temür and was forced to come to the Lithuanian land in 1397. Many people migrated with Khan Toktamys, settled in Trakai, located 27 kilometers away from Vilnius. Trakai was the capital of Lithuania during the reign of Grand Duke Gediminas in the beginning of the 14th century. This palace was erected in that period. The famous prince Vitovt was born here in 1350. During his reign, ties between the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and the Golden Horde, governed by Khan Toktamys, were strengthened. Letters confirming the friendship of the two rulers are still kept in a Lithuanian archive. As is known from history, the Golden Horde witnessed no struggle for power in the Chingizid dynasty during the reign of Toktamys Khan. The Golden Horde became a powerful state. However, Emir Timur could not bear this fact. Thus, the confrontation between the two rulers, which lasted for many years, began. On April the 15th in 1395, in the valley of the Terek River, the army of Toktamys was defeated. 2 years later, he, pursued by Edige, hid in Lithuania. Here, Lithuanian Prince Vitovt supported him, and they made a military campaign against the Golden Horde, Khan Timur Kutluk. However, the plans of Toktamys and Vitovt were not destined to come true. On August 2nd, 1399, the Allies were defeated. The army of Timur Kutluk was supported by Edige. After this event, the Kipchaks started resettlement. In the 13th century, they were Tatars Muslims. Later, many Karaites followed Toktamys.
Они оказались здесь, в Литве, в 1397-90.
The Lithuanian Kipchaks, that is, the Tatars and Karaites, came to the Lithuanian land in 1397-98. At that time, the famous prince of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, Vitovt, waged war against the Golden Horde and was defeated. After that, he thought about how to strengthen his army. Then the Kipchaks were the most valiant warriors. Thus, Vitovt resettled 380 families of warriors, Karaites and Tatars to the capital Trakai. He settled them around the palace. Its main goal was to ensure its security. After all, Kipchaks were considered not only courageous but also devoted warriors. Trakai is a small city with a population of 6,000 people. Of course, now it has acquired a modern look. However, it has enough monuments reminiscent of the glorious historical past. The Trakai Palace, erected by medieval rulers, stands on the island in the middle of the river. Not far from it, in the 14th century, there was the settlement of the Karaites, who came from the Crimea. Vitovt placed them in such a way for safety reasons. That is, all who came to the palace necessarily passed through the settlement of the Karaites and therefore were thoroughly controlled. Note, displaced soldiers were not rich, otherwise they would not be employed. In Trakai, the Karaites received conditions to improve their financial situation. They were engaged in agriculture. The cultivation of cucumbers was especially successful. According to local scientists, the Karaites were great experts in this case. Trakai has many places associated with our ancestors. However, there are few people who call themselves Karaites.
Олар өздерінің осындай
Thanks to their courage, fearlessness, and devotion, the Karaites were able to receive the best lands of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. They held responsible positions. By the way, the land plots donated to them were huge. The place where we now stand also once belonged to the Karaites. It is called Nemezhes, which means Nemerano, vast. That is, our ancestors had vast lands. According to scientists, Karaites come from the Kipchaks. In the 8th-10th centuries, they formed a tribal alliance. In the Qajar period, they were formed as a nation, which was originally called not Karaites but Karai. However, since they adhered to Karaism, the form of Judaism, they were called Karaites. After a while, the ethnos split into several groups. They were settled in the Crimea, Galicia, and Ukraine. Two more large groups were in Trakai until the end of the 17th century. There were about 30 Karaite associations in European countries. Now their number is much less. The Karaites of Lithuania retained the status of an ethnic group. The native language is known mainly to the representatives of the older generation. In 1994, sound recordings of the Karaite language were made in Sweden under the guidance of Uppsala University professor Eva Sato Johansson. Other measures were also taken to preserve it.
Когда мы говорим о караимах, всегда подчеркиваю, что на караимском языке, которым я...
When it comes to Karaites, I always say first of all about the name of the people. On Karaite, it will be right, Karai. In the plural, Karaites. They came to the land of Lithuania 620 years ago. However, speaking about our history, we go deeper even more, of course.
Но когда мы говорим о нашей истории, мы всегда смотрим еще в более дальние времена и еще глубже.
The Karaite prayer house is called Kenasa. Now there is only one such house in Vilnius and Trakai. Historians frequently argue about the original religion, which the Karaites preached. Studies of the famous Karaite public figure, the philologist Haji Seraya Khan Shapshal, show that the Karaites used to worship Tengri, like the Kipchaks. Members of the scientific expedition following the footsteps of ancestors visited the museum where this information is kept. Western countries influenced the Karaites' religious preferences more than the Turkic world. However, they managed to preserve the language after all. The Tatars, Lithuanian Muslims, on the contrary, could not save their native language, but they preserved their religion. According to Lithuanian manuscripts in the 16th century, most of the Kipchak Tatars spoke Polish. Perhaps it was under the pressure of the Lithuanian princess. And here it was not without political reasons. After all, in those days, the Kipchak language was very authoritative.
Основная их занятость – это военная служба и другие социальные проблемы предопределяют то, что…
The Kipchak Tatars occupied important military posts, but there were also those who were engaged in social sphere. Taking an active part in the social and political life of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania, they gradually forgot their native language and spoke the local language. At first, the state language of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania was the Belarusian language. Later, it was Polish. The Kipchak Tatars were faithful to their religion and remained committed to Islam.
И государственный другой язык – это польский язык.
Muslim Tatars who came from the Kipchak steppes to the Lithuanian land not only quickly adapted in a new place, but also introduced certain changes. That is, they managed to enrich the Western European civilization with elements of Turkic culture. The Holy Quran and the Hadiths of the Prophet Muhammad were translated into Belarusian and Polish. Kipchak architecture enjoyed a special honor here. Muslim mosques were a vivid example of its specificity and uniqueness. The first Islamic temple on the territory of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania appeared in the 14th century in the city of Lviv. After 300 years, the number of mosques reached 20. The book The Al-Furqan of the Tatars, written by scientist Alexander Chizhavsky, proves this. However, in troubled times, many mosques were destroyed and rebuilt in the 19th-20th centuries. Now there are 4 mosques in Kaunas, Nemesis, Raizhai, and the village of Karaites Tatars in Lithuania. The younger generation studies the basics of Islam and is acquainted with the history of their ancestors in the Muslim schools, madrasas. The village of Nemesis has an ancient burial ground, which can also be the subject of future historical research. Lithuanian, Belarusian, and Polish Tatars are considered one nation. They are called Lipka Tatars. However, most of the older generation do not consider themselves Tatars. They claim that they are the descendants of the Kipchaks. At one time, the local European peoples called them Tatars. Now Lithuania is a home for 4,000 Tatars, Poland has 2,000, and Belarus approximately 7,500 Tatars. According to scientists, mixed marriages are one of the reasons for the decline in the number of the nation.
Олардың бәрін осы жақтағы жергілікті адамдар татар деп кеткен.
Local residents called them Tatars, but in fact they are not Tatars, but our ancestors, Kipchaks, descendants from Deshta Kipchak. In the 14th century, during the reign of the Golden Horde, Khan Toktamys, our ancestors, helped a Lithuanian princess.
Toktamys'tың заманы, сондықтан көбісі олар келді осында, мынау Vitovt'терге.
The Grand Duchy of Lithuania was formed precisely in the period when another wave of crusades began. This confrontation from the Muslims of Eastern Europe threatened the Grand Duchy of Lithuania to some extent, which immediately took defensive measures. One of them was the strengthening of the army by the Kipchak soldiers. Moved from the Crimea, the Kipchaks were dispersed along the whole frontier of the Grand Duchy.
Первое такое важное участие военное – это участие в Grunwaldской битве в 1410
The very first military battle in which the Kipchak Tatars participated as part of the Lithuanian army is the Grunwald Battle of 1410. The Kipchaks participated in the battle as a separate squad and showed good military tactics. For example, at the most crucial moment of the battle, the soldiers fled in all directions, imitating a retreat. When the enemies lost their vigilance, the Kipchaks suddenly surrounded them.
Они убегают с поля боя, отступают, а потом враг как бы входит клином в ловушку и потом закрывается, и получается такой результат.
The Battle of Grunwald, the united army of Poland, Lithuania, and Golden Horde opposed the Teutonic Order. The battle took place on July the 15th, 1410, in the north of Poland. The Teutonic army consisted of German and French knights, English and Swiss mercenaries. 40,000 Kipchaks under the direction of Jalal ad-Din were on the front line of the battle. At first, the advantage was on the side of the enemy. However, Lithuanians and Kipchaks broke the situation, beheading the commander of the Teutons. The Crusaders were defeated.
Отандарын қорғады, шекараларын босатты, елдерін азаттан.
They defended the motherland, liberated it from the enemy. The courage shown by our ancestors for a long time repulsed the Teutonic desire for aggressive campaigns. It was all thanks to our ancestors.
Ол нақты айтып айтуға болады, біздің бабаларымыздың арқасында.
This is just one example among many of heroic victories where our ancestors showed courage, steadfastness, and excellent military training. Therefore, it is also necessary to study the history of military battles involving the Kipchaks. This is one of the recommendations of the scientific expedition to young scientists.
Мына кезінде Литваның ұлы князі дейді, Vitovt. Ол әдейі
The Grand Duke of Lithuania, Vitovt, specially invited our ancestors, generously gave them most fertile land for farming and cattle breeding. In general, he created all the conditions for them. In return, one thing was required: stand up for protection if the enemy comes. Horses and weapons were always ready for the battle.
Құрал-саймандарың, қару-жарақтарың. Олардың тек қана міндеті Литваны қорғау.
The scientific expedition following the footsteps of ancestors continues its travel around Europe, revealing the white spots of history and clearing the way for truth. Poland, Germany, Hungary, Italy, and France are lands to explore. According to scientists, our ancestors left a rich heritage in these countries.
Ғылыми экспедицияға шыққанына 50 күннің сыртында уақыт болды. Осы көтеде біз 10 шақты елде болдық.
The scientific expedition has started 50 days ago. We visited 10 countries and found reliable facts. Our ancestors left a bright trace there. They participated and won battles. They built architectural monuments, palaces, and cities. This is a matter of pride for all of us. Also, the Kipchaks were true to their word. Therefore, they were honored and respected.
Сондай бір үлкен жетістікке жеткен соғыста болсын, жай жұмыста да болсын.
The expedition collected a lot of new information about the Battle of Grunwald in Poland. If the army of Jalal ad-Din did not participate in this battle, how would the history of Poland and Lithuania then evolve? Watch the next episode to learn new facts.